One time I was following a tour through. That's when I heard my name whispered to me back behind me, back over there in the shoe. Another time, somebody was also walking through following a tour. They heard footsteps behind him following through the cave the entire time up to the cable train. Lots of weird stuff. We also had telephones ringing every now and then. Not a person on the other side to answer. Which I shouldn't, because this is a closed line. There's no phone lines outside of here, so what in the world is that phone doing ringing down here? Kind of funky. Also found light bulbs a couple times.
So during the daytime, just none of the spooky stories get told?
Not really, unless people ask for them. Unless we're advertising with the land show, say, hey, take the tour and tell you all the weird stuff that's happening to me down here in the cave. Watch your stands right here. Back over here is a really cool area. Beyond the top of those stairs is well over 20 miles of cave going to the north of us, all part of this cave system. 20 miles. Now I'm going to tell you a story later in the cave. We don't have enough space right here for everybody, but we're going to talk about the only time somebody's been held up at gunpoint in this cave back in that area a long time ago. It was a guy who was mapping this cave out, got held up by a young man who was looking for some treasures down here we'll talk about later. Keep that name, Lost River Canyon, in the back of your head. Right here is Tall Man's Headache. 2 years ago, we had the Harlem Globetrotters on a tour. They're 7 foot tall person. They got their hands and knees to fit through this next session. I kid you not.
That's when they came after watching.
No, no.
Yeah. That'd be funny. I guess the one guy probably didn't have a problem.
Is that one the smaller gap?
Yep, that is a 4 foot section.
Doesn't feel as small as it does.
They really don't. I think they made the one up top harder for a reason, though. It discourages the right people from not doing this. This path right here goes down to the bottomless pit on the shoe we were on top of earlier. This is where Dave ran out that one night coming up that way. Kid you not, I made it to that tower in 3 minutes flat.
This looks like a great place to set up like a sleeping mat.
Yeah, sleeping in the cave is actually pretty peaceful if you ever get the chance to do that.
As a fan, so I sleep like a baby.
Yeah, that was a gift to us left by the Spaniards. They invented it.
Especially this game.
The longer you spend down here, the more and more your mind goes crazy.
Really? I wonder what that is, like the specific like combinations of stimuli that cause that.
Lack of lighting, I assume. Lack of lighting.
Right.
And you don't have people around you. Watch your step right there. And watch your head. Watch your head.
Maybe we miss like
We're going to stop in here next. We're going to talk about that area back over there. Whose name that is, why that mask is there, and why that cabin is there as well.
I didn't see this last time. Wait.
So we're going to talk about it on the daytime tours. Come on in here, y'all gather on up. We're going to talk a little bit about that area back over there. A couple cool stories behind it. After we'll take a look, kind of sliding down this way, we're going to fit everybody through school the best we can. And that big bottomless pit we're on top of, up in the shoe, is on the other side of the big old rock right there. Go on top of that rock, go 10 feet that way, you can see the heel of the shoe 125 feet above us right now in that area. Is that everybody?
Yes,
all right, excellent. All right, guys, this is our next stop. This is called the Harold Bell Wright Passageway. Has anybody ever heard the name before, Harold Bell Wright? Okay, has anybody heard of a book called Shepherd of the Hills?
Yes.
Yeah? He is the author of the book Shepherd of the Hills, Harold Bell Wright. A little backstory about him. He is originally from Rome, New York. And he had freelance worked his way through the United States in the late 1880s and 1890s. And finally, about 1904, he made it to the Ozarks in this area. He didn't know nobody around here, but he wanted to have more permanent homestead and kind of live in here for the next couple months. Well, I knocked on a cabin door one day, and opened up the door was a couple named Jake and Anna Ross. They asked him if he could camp out in their front yard for a little bit in a tent until he found a more permanent homestead. Have you all seen the big tower next to Highway 76 heading towards Branson, that big Shepherd of the Hills tower? That's the exact spot where his tent was at that time. And while he stayed there, he fell in love with the sights that he saw around him. He could see clear down to Arkansas, see the Boston Mountains down there. He could look up north, see all the plains and the bald hills around him. And he also fell in love with the folks he met as well. They're all very kind people to him. He loved it all so much he decided he had to stop there and write a book about this place. So he named it Shepherd of the Hills. That book is based off of real people from this area. It's based off the Branson area back in the early 1900s. And everybody in the book is a real person. Their names just changed to hide their identity. Well, since the book is about real people heard about it very quickly. And everybody who lived around here wanted to be a part of that book and be a character for him. So after a couple months of writing this book, he was approached every day by people pestering him all the time, asking him to be part of this book. Well, that got kind of overbearing on him for a little bit. And about 1905, he became good friends with Mr. Lynch. And he asked Mr. Lynch one day if he knew of a place that he could write his book in solitude away from everybody else around this area. Well, so yeah, I sure do. Mr. Lynch took him down to the cave and put him in his cabin back over there around the corner that he built back in 1902. He built that cabin back in 1902 to get away from his daughters, never got married. He loved them to bits, he had to get away from them now and then, so that became the world's first man cave. But in 1905, Mr. Harold Bell Wright moved into it. He wrote about 40% of the last part of the book, Shepherd of the Hills. The majority of it was written back in that cabin that's still there today. When he published the book in 1907, it became the second bestseller in the nation, second behind the Bible at that time. People read that book from all the way from California to New York City, and sometimes even from London, England, people read that book. And once they read it, they heard about this area, they had to flock over here to see it, and that's when Branson tourism really began, was about 1907, because of the book Shepherd of the Hills. And anytime he talks about a cave or a book, in that book, he's talking about this case specifically right here, is what he's referring to. He also talks about the ball numbers in his book, and he also made a clay mask in 1906 about them as well. Still there today on the wall, made out of clay, since 1906. Pretty cool. You guys ever heard of them before?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know what they all did? Okay, for the folks who haven't heard about this, I'll tell you this story. Back in the 1880s, Missouri was a very lawless place. It was about as Wild West could get. There's a lot of people left over from the Civil War who moved over here, who became bushwhackers and became murderers and cattle thieves. At the time, this area that we have didn't have a lot of law enforcement. There was about one sheriff per county and maybe a couple deputies, that was about it. A lot of murders back then went unsolved or even unpunished, even in court. There's a lot of corruption going on. Well, over time, people in Branson got tired of that. It wasn't his foresight at the time. They got tired of that happening. So a man named Nat Kenny got together with his local friends, and they called themselves the Citizens League Against Crime. They met on top of treeless hills called Bald Knobs, and that's how they got their name, the Bald Knobbers. They would hide their identity by wearing flour sacks with horns attached to them. Looks like a devil's kind of mask, kind of like that. That's what it's modeled after. What they would do, they'd hide their identity, they'd work right out in the night. Anytime somebody was doing some really bad stuff, they'd leave a bundle of sticks on their front porch as a warning. If you don't fix your behavior, we're going to do something with you, and you're not going to like the results. And since nobody knew who they were, they could be your neighbor, they could be your barber, they could be your butcher. You have no idea who they are, but they're always keeping an eye on you, even though you can't see them. Worked fine for a couple of years. And a couple of years later, they became outlaws themselves. Since they cannot have any identities, they started taking people's lands. They started killing people because they just didn't like them too much. So they became outlaws. Well, about 1890, the Missouri State Governor actually got really tired of it. He told them, you better shut it down. We're going to come down here by force of the National Guard. We're going to get rid of you once and for all. So they shut it down. Well, one of the last things they ever did was actually they burned the town of Marmaris to the ground up top because they didn't like the Lynch family at all moving into here taking their land. That's why we had the Riot, Fire, and the Hole is based on a true story. The Bald Knobbers actually did do it. So that's what happened. But he talks about it in his book. That's why he made that mask. And behind the cabin on the wall, can't see it, there's a painting back there that he made in 1907. It's called Maggie at the Well. It has a scene from his book. It's a girl in a pink dress at a water well getting a pitcher of water. And what I didn't tell you about the Lynch family is that they did not like graffiti inside the caves at all. Anytime they see a scratch mark on the wall from people's signatures, they would erase it completely so nobody else would see it, and they would do the same thing after them. Well, one day Genevieve Lynch went back there, saw that painting, and she actually loved it. She thought it was really cool. She thought it was really very beautiful. She'd take people down here all the time to go check it out. So it was a really cool thing that Harold Wright had left them. Well, her sister Miriam, on the other hand, hated that painting. She hated the fact that he came down here with the oil-based paints and put them all over the cave wall and defiled it. Well, one day Miriam went up top, found a little boy. She hired him to come on down here with a ball of mud, cover the paintings, so nobody else could ever see it again. So he did. Well, next day Genevieve came on down, saw the paintings been covered, went up top, she found a little boy, hired him to come on down with a pitcher of water and uncover the painting. This went on for an entire summer of cleaning and dirtying the same spot on the wall, so they found out they were hiring the same little boy over and over again to do the same job for them. Didn't say anything to the other sister when he did that. He went back to school that fall as a really rich kid, and it was pretty funny. The Lynch sisters found out about it later that year, and actually found it quite funny, and he came to a truce on that painting after that. They decided to leave it uncovered. It's still back there today from 1907 on the cave wall. I'll show you a picture at the end of the cave tour. I have it in a book. I'll show it to you. It's pretty cool. All right, guys, we're going to move in. The sound here behind me is that waterfall. We're not going to see it. It is lit up in color-changing lights, so if you guys want to, take your phones out, take a picture if you wish to. It's very beautiful. If you hear any singing going on down there, ask them if they have any Thin Mints. I'm hungry, so let's go see them. Watch your step right here. Watch your heads right here. All right, folks, watch your head, shoulder in your back. Okay, the truck right here is a little bit low for you. The Girl Scout that found was right about there in the water, shaking and scared to death. Dave, that guy was working right over there on that handrail. We heard the singing sound over 5 feet away from right about there, about stolen well. They were supposed to sing about this. The tape recorder was left right there in that rock. We found that corner 5 feet away, smashed to smithereens right there. Kind of hungry. Right here. Watch your head through here if you need to. And watch your step. What's that?
There's the dinosaur.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait. Is it there?
Yeah, he's still there.
Yeah.
Velociraptors, Plasticus. Watch your step right there.
Oh, this is the fun side table over here.
Oh, the Flintstone dining table?
Yeah.
Oh, that was back before the shoe, unfortunately.
Oh, wait, I thought so, but I didn't see it.
It's kind of hard to make out in the dark.
This is the bench room.
This is a mud tunnel. Back in 1894, this entire tunnel was full of mud. You only had this 18-inch clearance to fit through at that time.
Huh.
So you crawl through a space only this big with the candle in your hand, trying to keep it lit the entire time as you crawl through this thing. About 100 feet or so.
That sounds very comfortable.
Yeah, especially the idea of trying to keep your candle lit, not let it go out. Watch your step right here.
Yeah, this is the bench room. Carved out this bench.
We're all like who formed it out of concrete back in the day. That's part of that 10-year process they saw benches. Hey, if you want to, you can take a seat on it if you like, or tell a story in here. We got some fun. Oh, it's wet. It's very wet. Yes, a little bit. You don't have to take a seat. There's plenty of seats right over here as well. if you wish.
This isn't nitric acid, is it?
Should be.
That is what vacuum is, right?
What's that?
That is what vacuum is, right?
Close. It's ammonium nitrate.
Oh,
That's why it was so good in gunpowder back then, because they dry it out, mix it with some other components like charcoal and sulfur to create the black powder that we have. Come on, guys. Plenty of seats in here. People should take a seat if you can. Doing good. Come on up. Last one, excellent. If you guys want to, you actually take a seat over there if you wish. Couple benches in here. But now that you're all in here, do me a favor and go and shut off the lanterns for me. Yep, go and turn them off. Got a cool story to tell in here if it lights out. Now the story I want to tell y'all happened back in 1894 when they first started doing tours of this cave. In 1894, there was no map of this cave at all back then. And that's kind of a problem. If somebody goes missing down here, they don't know where to go looking for them because there's no maps, they don't know what the rooms look like, and they have no idea how big the cave actually is. So before they started tours, they decided to get a basic map of the cave first. We heard about a man named S. Fred Prince who lived around here at the time. He was a well-known botanist, illustrator, and cave explorer. He actually explored about 150 different caves becoming this one in 1894. So he's a perfect fit for that job. So he would come on down here. He spent about a week, so sometimes a month at a time, mapping out this cave in its entirety. Spent about 3 years doing it, and his maps are so detailed, we're still using the same ones to this day. They're that accurate. Well, during this, while this had happened, sometimes he'd be approached by a young man named Gamble. Don't know what his rest of his name was. All he knows his name was Gamble. This is from his memoirs, and that's who he said he was. Gamble was adamant about taking a cave tour, but only with Mr. Fred Prince. There was some time he meeted him. He said, "Mr. Prince, you know the cave so well, like the back of your hand. Please take me down on a tour. Show me everything you know. I really want to see the cave tour with you." There was one time you would ask Mr. Prince to say, "No, I'm not a cave guy. Talk to the instrument. They're the ones who do tours. They'll help you out." This went on for several months. Well, Mr. Prince is gearing up one day to go on a trip down the Lost River Canyon. You all see a sign back there that says Lost River on it for the waterfalls? Yeah. That's the areas we're talking about. Guys, that passage that we have back there is well over 20 miles long to this day. He mapped out the entire thing. Well, he's going back there to map out. He's going to spend about 3 days back there on a really long excursion. And for that excursion, he decided to bring an assistant with him. Reason being that patches that's back there is very treacherous. It's very tight in some spots. There's a lot of water sections, very muddy, and you can get lost and separate very easily in that area. So he decided to bring a second person with him just as a backup in case something happened to him. Well, the day came. He's about to go down to that passage, waiting for his assistant, and the assistant never showed up that morning. But an hour later, down the road, here came that young man named Gamble one more time. And he asked him very nicely one more time. He said, "Mr. Prince, please take me through on this excursion. I want to see the cave only with you. Please take me with you." Mr. Prince realized he has really no other options, and he said, "You know what? Here's what I'll do. Since my assistant has not shown up, it looks like he won't today. Here's what I'll do for you. If you want, you can be my assistant. We're going to go for 3 days. Here's what we're going to do, though. You're going to carry my bags, you're going to carry the equipment. All you need to do with the candles and the lights, and we'll go on our way. Sound good?" They shook hands, agreed to it, off they went. They crawled down the ladder to the big chamber, showed him off all the cool things about that. Took him back to the mammoth room, showed all the cool things there, all the bats and such. Went down to the shoe, showed him off that, and our next stop was the Lost River Canyon. He went down that passage, went about 5 miles into that thing. About the 5-mile mark, Mr. Princess realized that Mr. Gamble's gone completely silent behind him. He's kind of concerned about him, gets worried. So he turns around to check out to see what he's doing, and there he sees Gamble in the dark, no longer holding any of the equipment in his hands. In his hands instead, he sees a revolver and a treasure map. Y'all remember the Spanish gold we had talked about earlier? That's what he was after. Very calmly, Gamble said, Mr. Prince, I know you know this cave like the back of your hands. I also know you know where the Spanish gold is buried. If you ever will see light day again or take you to that gold right here, right now, what's it going to be? Prince pleaded with him. He said, Gamble, there's no gold down here. It's been a made-up story. There's never been gold found in this cave. You're crazy. Very calmly said again, tell me right now, I want to start firing shots into this cave. What's it going to be? Well, Mr. Prince thought about something, thought about his options. Thought popped into his head. He smiled and he said, you know what, Gamble? You're right. I do know this cave like the back of my hands. Do you? Prince snuck away behind a rock, hid back there for a little bit, and let Mr. Gamble be by himself for a little while and start freaking out. Didn't say a word. But Gamble got shaken and yelled out and said, Prince, show yourself right now. I'm going to start firing shots into the cave. Do you hear me? Prince didn't say a word. But sure enough, Gamble started firing shots into the cave, let it go, and off they went. They heard that infamous click. He waited another minute, and Prince said, very calmly, he said, Gamble, that's the Smith & Wesson. You had your 6. If you ever want to see light of day again, you're going to throw down a gun, surrender it. I want to hear the floor. What's it going to be? Gamble realized he has no other option, so he throws down his gun. Gamble, Prince hears it. He reemerges and relights his candle. And goes down with his easy strike matches back there. And escorted out that passage. He walked back about 5 miles. He didn't say a word to him after that. Walked back to the beginning of the cave, sent him up that ladder. But got up top, Gamble took off as quick as he can back in the woods and disappeared forever. Before he did, Prince yelled at him. He said, Gamble, if I ever see you around this cave again, I'm going to tell the bond I was on you, and it'll make good darn sure again, you never see light day again. You mark my words. Never saw him again after that. His memoirs, he said he's an amusing little cuss, but he did not like his revolver games. That's his words exactly. You guys can relate to ways if you'd like to. Go ahead, turn my door. That's my favorite story to tell down here. The only hold up we had in the cave. Better than train robberies.
Yeah.
Alright guys, we gotta start walking out of here, unfortunately. Right up here is the Huff and Puff staircase. 15 stories to the top of those stairs, Red Camp Train. We have about 20-ish people on this tour. I'll load you about 8 per car, not to worry about that. 2 things to be mindful of as you walk up these stairs. The first thing to watch out for is that low hanging rock right there. It's called the Noggin Knocker. But there's one more rock behind it, can't see it, and that one is called the Rock of Many Names. So if you're up here, please watch the answers to that. Please watch your mouse and look at it. Noggin Knocker. Don't rock.
Most of the things that we given to us were given by big guys.
We forget about those.
Where we had to carry you
Well, back under there, that is our Harry Potter closet because it's underneath the staircase. Here's what I'm going to back there. There's a bunch of hoses and stuff. There's actually some wound up power washer back there as well. We look around, spray out the mud what we need to. Kind of like a storage facility. So if it's Harry Potter closet, we wouldn't see the Hufflepuff stairs. Come on.
Wait, the stairs move?
I hope not. We're in trouble when they do.
That means the painting also must move.
Whatever I hit was soft right now.
Yeah. That's the padding we put on the stairs and up on the spot.
Watch your hand here.
Very lucky to hit my head at the one only spot.
Isn't it though? Let's funny when we turn around on tours when the cable tray doesn't work. I always hit my head going back to the cave. It looks completely different in reverse for us.
I bet.
So I cocked my head quite a few times going back through.
So what usually is it that makes when the cable train doesn't work?
Usually, it's something going on up top, or there's like a sensor that's not working right, or it's gone up too far. It's hit the dead man switch, or it cuts power to the train because it went up too far. 9 times out of 10, that's what happens. It happened to us one time during Moonlight Madness. It was a midnight tour day. The entire cave was shut down for the entire day for weather. About 11:30, we had clearance to go back through here, shut off lights, and get the AEDs out of the cave. We go through the cave, shut off the lights, get to the train. Sure enough, it doesn't fire up. So we walked back through the cave in the dark with these big AED boxes, and the bats had followed us into the cave to the point would not leave us alone the entire time. Finally got out of this cave about 1 o'clock in the morning or so. Sometimes.
How often do people get to go down there?
Whenever we're open, it's till 10 o'clock. It's not going the last hour of the day.
How often do they do
When
Moonlight
is
Madness?
the next time that's coming?
Moonlight Madness this year is in July. It's like the 3rd and 4th week, I think. About 2.5 weeks of it, I think.
Crazy, you know that.
Do you give a moment of silence through the waterfall just to see if you hear anything?
Yeah. So we send people to through by themselves, see if they can hear it. What they would do when the entire tour guys back in the day, they actually camp out back there during the night. And they send them by themselves to the Gulf and see how long they can stay down there until they got freaked out and left. Unfortunately, no one does do anymore because they're concerned about things happening overnight in the cave with people down here. So it's like, hey, we gotta do it. Come on in here if you want to. Take a little of this handrail, try to look below us, see where you walked up from. Can't see much. But 130 feet down now was the mystic form where I blew out the candle on you guys on that story. You just walked up a long, long way up the stairs. Come on in, guys, gather on up. We're also going to talk about this room as well and all the crazy things on that ceiling. Cool stuff. Come on in, guys, welcome. Your last stop at the cave. We did good on time, we still have 15 minutes to spare, not too bad. A few more folks joining us.
Yeah, I think there's some more.
Anybody's legs feel tired after this? No. Some folks say they never use the Stairmaster after doing this tour a few times. Called the Cave Cardio Program. But come on in, y'all. Welcome. There they are. All right. Folks, this is our last stop in the cave, and this is what we call our Elves Chamber. It was discovered by the mining company back in about 1887. It's one of the last pieces they found while they were mining out this cave. When it came in here at the time, there was not a lot of good airflow to the section of the cave because the door up there didn't exist. It was all solid rock. They actually blasted that out. And at the time, there was a lot of CO2 built up in this chamber. When they climbed up, they stood up top here trying to catch your breath, huffing and puffing. They're breathing in nothing but fresh CO2. So as they stood here, they stood around and they described the ceiling as dancing elves and fairies in the shadows from the candles flickering on the formations. Of course, they were hallucinating or tripping and on CO2 and seeing things that weren't there. What they saw was the shadows from those formations, like I said, dancing around the ceiling like that. What they saw from the flickering candles. We believe the elves ran away in the 60s when they blasted that train tunnel. They ran away to the trees and started making cookies for the people who couldn't come ever since. That's where they're at today. But we still call it the Elves Chamber. Now, wavy stuff right there, that's called cave drapery, some cave curtains. Looks like a fabric band on rock. We got some more way up there. Looks like the underside of a mushroom, kind of. They also got 3 stalactites hanging together right there. That is called the 3 Sisters because they come from the same rock. Over there is a 10-foot tall stalagmite going straight up in the floor. Directly above that is Santa's beard, but it's pure white almost. Back on this side, those little skinny guys, those are called soda straws. Like a straw, they're hollow. The water drips in the middle, eventually the calcite casts at the bottom, and soil starts to build, and it's stalactites, and those guys are running around them over time. Everything that you see inside this chamber grows at a rate of 1 cubic inch every 2,500 years. It takes a long, long time for it to grow. So been here for a long time. Let's sneak through here, show you all the cool things, then we're going to head on out.
It basically hasn't grown since they started giving tours.
Not by much, maybe by like a 1/4 inch or so, and maybe a little bit more than that, maybe a solid inch, but nothing noticeable over the years that we've seen. So very slow rate. Another cool thing about these formations is the fact that they are all translucent. Shine light, wall light shines through it, like a salt lamp kind of. Pretty neat. But while they're translucent, very dense, very heavy. In fact, that stalactite right there, it probably weighs 300 to 400 pounds by itself, if not more. Same thing goes for everything dangling above our heads right now as we speak. On that note, let's get out of here. Behind the doors, red cable train. Once again, we're going to load about 6 to 7 per car, 3 per row. If y'all want to see information, feels like usually we tell them don't touch it. But one you can touch is actually right here. It's dead. It will never grow again. If you can't beat them, join them. So always again. See if you guys want to touch this wall. Let's get loaded. Here we go. Let me get my keys up.
It's like wet.
Moist. You always find out who doesn't like that word when you say it.
I've never gotten that. People who think that word just.
Hey, just say it to say it. Here's our high-tech door holder. And I have the old way behind us white line for just a quick second. All right, come up this way to car number 1. Here we go. Y'all get car 1 right there. Go to the door and anywhere inside the car. Don't sit 1, 2, 3, 4.